A first-class seat. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A black girl on the brink of everything she's worked for. Ripped apart at the gate. Alyssa Carter stood frozen as the flight attendant tore her ticket in half, called her a fraud, and handed her future to someone else. But what that attendant didn't know, Alyssa's mother wasn't just a mom. She was the quiet storm behind a billion-dollar empire. And with one phone call, she would set off a chain reaction so explosive, it would shake the airline industry to its core. You think you've seen karma? Think again. The overhead speakers at JFK International Airport's Terminal 5 echoed with a soothing voice. Now boarding, Altura Air Flight 702 to London Heathrow. First-class passengers and Diamond Elite members may board at this time. Alyssa Carter's pulse quickened. She took a long, steadying breath, fingers tightening around the handle of her sleek carry-on. Her boarding pass, Seat 2A, First Class, was pressed flat between her manicured fingers like a badge of honor. Her mother had insisted on it. You don't walk into the biggest opportunity of your life looking like you begged to be there, Naomi had said, voice sharp and steady. You walk in like you belong. And Alyssa did belong. 19 years old, honors student, debate champion, future King's Merit Scholar. That flight wasn't just a way across the Atlantic. It was a bridge to everything she'd built since she was old enough to dream. She approached Gate C-16 with a quiet confidence. Her braids were pinned back neatly, blazer crisp, jeans understated but polished. If confidence had a shape, Alyssa was wearing it. There were two airline staff at the podium. One was a young man scanning documents with mechanical disinterest. The other, an older woman with tightly styled blonde hair, bright red lipstick and a name tag that read P. Whitmore, stood straight, like she was guarding Buckingham Palace. Her eyes landed on Alyssa and narrowed almost imperceptibly. Good evening, Alyssa offered politely, handing over her boarding pass and passport. The man reached for it, but Ms. Whitmore intercepted with one swift motion. She examined the documents with exaggerated care, flipping the boarding pass like it might bite her. Seat 2A? She asked, as though it were a punchline. Yes, ma'am, Alyssa replied, smile fixed. Whitmore's eyes drifted down Alyssa's outfit, then back up to her face. A cool smile curled her lips. And how did you get this ticket? My mother booked it. Uh-huh. Whitmore tilted her head, as if trying to see something Alyssa had hidden in her soul. What's your mother's name? Alyssa hesitated. Naomi Carter. Whitmore gave a short laugh through her nose. Of course. Alyssa felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She glanced over her shoulder. Two businessmen were already watching, brows furrowed. A woman in yoga pants looked up from her phone, sensing the tension. I'll just need to verify this, Whitmore said with clipped authority. She turned and walked away, boarding pass still in hand. Wait, verify what? Alyssa called after her, voice steady but tight. Everything matches. My ID, my ticket. Whitmore didn't answer. She disappeared through the jet bridge. The male agent avoided Alyssa's gaze, waving the next passenger forward. Alyssa stepped aside, trying not to feel every stare pressing into her. She forced herself to breathe, but her lungs felt tight. It's fine, she told herself. It's a misunderstanding. She'll come back, and I'll get on that plane. I have to. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The boarding line thinned. Alyssa approached the podium again. Excuse me, do you know how long she'll be? The man gave her a half shrug. She's the lead FA, probably talking to the captain. About my ticket? I don't know. Please wait, miss. Alyssa stepped back again, the knot in her stomach coiling tighter. She checked her phone. No messages from her mother. No alerts from the airline. Everything was still confirmed. And then, just as she opened her mouth to ask again, Whitmore reappeared. She didn't look at Alyssa. Instead, she walked to the podium, lifted the microphone, and spoke clearly into it. Final boarding for Flight 702 to London. We have one seat remaining in first class, Seat 2A. It has become available due to a last-minute cancellation. We are now pleased to offer an upgrade to our next eligible Diamond Elite member. A hush rippled through the waiting area. Alyssa blinked. Her legs turned cold. Did she just... A man in a tailored navy blazer perked up. "That's me," he said, stepping forward. A flight attendant ushered him forward like royalty. Whitmore smiled graciously, then turned to the man and handed him a new boarding pass. As she did, she took Alyssa's original pass from her pocket and, rip, tore it clean down the middle. She tossed the pieces into the trash. Alyssa's heart stopped. For a moment, the world seemed to spin. Then everything sharpened, every detail, every sound. She marched to the podium, voice shaking. "What did you just do?" Whitmore looked up, expression blank. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Do you have a boarding pass?" "You know I do. You just tore it up. My name is Alyssa Carter. I was assigned seat 2A. "I have no record of that." Whitmore's tone turned frosty. "The seat was released due to ticket irregularities. The new passenger has been boarded." "Irregularities? What are you talking about? My ticket is paid for. My name matches my ID. You know that." Whitmore crossed her arms. "Miss, I'm going to ask you to step back. If you continue to raise your voice, I'll have to involve airport security." Alyssa's vision blurred. She felt the sting at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "You stole my seat. I prevented fraud," Whitmore snapped. Behind her, the man in the navy blazer disappeared down the jet bridge, blissfully unaware of the firestorm behind him. Alyssa turned, staggering back a step. The crowd had moved on. No one said anything. No one helped. She pulled out her phone. Her fingers trembled so badly she could barely tap the screen. Only one person could cut through this. Only one voice could anchor her. She pressed Mom. The phone rang once, then twice. By the third ring, Alyssa's heart was pounding so loud it threatened to drown out the entire terminal. "Hey, baby girl," came her mother's warm, familiar voice. "Aren't you supposed to be in the air by now?" Alyssa didn't answer right away. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. And then, crack. The tears she had been fighting finally broke through. "Mom," she choked. They won't let me on the plane. She took my ticket. She tore it up." Silence. Then Naomi's voice dropped, soft and steel-edged. "Who did?" "She said my ticket was fraudulent, but it's not. You bought it. You know you did. She gave my seat away, Mom, like I didn't matter." Naomi closed her eyes. She was sitting in a sleek glass conference room on the 48th floor of Alara Tech's Manhattan headquarters. Across the table sat David Lynn, the CEO, and two of their top legal counsel, all mid-sentence in a high-stakes acquisition meeting. "Gentlemen," Naomi said, standing, voice crisp. "Excuse me for 5 minutes. I'll rejoin once I deal with a developing situation." Before anyone could respond, she stepped out and shut the door behind her. The glass was soundproof, but the chill she left behind stayed. Naomi walked with measured purpose down the hall, heels clicking in sync with her pulse. She passed a framed photo in the hallway, a group shot of Alara Tech's board members. Second row, center, Naomi Carter. No assistant badge, no title under her name, just her own seat at the table. No one knew that behind her calm, controlled presence was a fire forged long ago. A fire that had started burning the day she watched her daughter be erased in front of her for the first time. 11 years earlier. Alyssa, just 8 years old, sat wide-eyed in a bakery cafe uptown. Her mother had taken her for a girls' day, just the two of them, no work, no distractions. Naomi wore her best navy blazer, and Alyssa had on a new yellow dress with ruffled sleeves. They'd picked out 2 pastries and a hot chocolate. "Mommy, it has a little leaf on the foam," Alyssa giggled, but the laughter faded when the manager appeared. He didn't look at Alyssa. His eyes went straight to Naomi. "Excuse me, miss," he said stiffly. "This section is reserved for dine-in guests. If you've already ordered, we kindly ask you to take your items to go." Naomi blinked. "We are dining in. I placed the order 10 minutes ago." He frowned. "There must have been a mistake. This section is usually reserved." Alyssa didn't understand the words. but she understood the tone. She looked around. The only other families sitting there were white. Naomi stood, calmly gathering their cups. "No mistake," she said softly. "Just a pattern." They left. That day, Naomi didn't cry, but something inside her broke and rearranged. From that moment on, she swore. No one would ever humiliate her daughter again, not without consequence. Now, in the present, Naomi's expression darkened. "What gate are you at?" "C-16, JFK, the airline is Altura Air." Naomi moved to her office, shutting the door. She sat behind her mahogany desk and pulled up her encrypted contacts system. Name of the employee? Her badge said Whitmore. P. Whitmore. Naomi typed with precision. "Okay, listen to me," she said, her tone sharpening like a blade. "Sit down near the gate. Don't argue, don't cry, don't say anything to her. Just watch. I'm going to fix this." "How?" Alyssa whispered. "Because they messed with the wrong mother." She hung up. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. A file popped up. Altura Air, Target, Acquisition Review Phase 2. Underneath, confidential access, board only. Elara Tech had been quietly acquiring minority shares of Altura Air for months. The full buyout proposal was slated for review within weeks. It was a strategic move, aviation technology, logistics control, data leverage. But for Naomi, it was personal now. She scrolled to a direct contact listing. Gregory Bennett, Executive VP, Corporate Accounts, Altura Air Private Cell, redacted. She picked up her office landline. No assistant, no delay. The call rang once. "Bennett," came the familiar clipped voice. "Gregory," Naomi said, coolly. There was a pause. "Ms. Carter, always an honor. I assume this isn't a social call?" "No, it's not," she replied. "One of your lead flight attendants at JFK, Paige Whitmore, just racially profiled my daughter, tore up her first-class ticket, and gave her seat to someone else." Silence. Naomi continued. "The ticket was booked on Elara Tech's corporate account, same as our other 30,000 annual bookings. I want that plane held at the gate, Gregory. I want my daughter in her seat, and I want Ms. Whitmore removed." Gregory's voice caught. Naomi, that's a serious allegation. I don't make casual allegations. I send evidence, legal teams, and contract terminations. Choose which one you want to deal with. Understood. Oh, and Gregory, you should know, I'm not just Elara Tech's liaison. I'm a board member. That acquisition you're banking on? It won't survive the morning if this doesn't get resolved tonight. More silence. This one heavier. "I'll take care of it," he said, voice hushed. Naomi hung up. She stared out the window of her 48th floor office. Below, the city pulsed with lights, movement, noise. But here was quiet power. She pulled up the flight tracker. Flight 702, boarding complete, gate still attached. Her phone buzzed again. Incoming call. Private, unknown ID. She answered. "Carter," a female voice. "This is Tina Hawkins, JFK Station Director for Altura Air. I've been briefed. We're on it." Naomi didn't smile, but somewhere, in the cold fury behind her eyes, justice was already boarding. "Ladies and gentlemen," Paige Whitmore's voice rang out over the intercom again, crisp and smooth like she hadn't just shredded a teenage girl's future minutes earlier. "We are pleased to announce that Seat 2A in first class has become available due to a ticket irregularity. It will now be reassigned to one of our Diamond Elite members." The words struck Alyssa like a slap. Her fists clenched at her sides as she stared, open-mouthed, at the podium. Irregularity? Her name was on that seat. Her passport matched. The ticket had been paid, confirmed. And yet, the lie echoed through the terminal like gospel. A man in a sharply tailored gray suit stepped forward. Mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, confident gait. "That's me," he said with a smile, flashing his upgraded boarding pass. Paige greeted him like a celebrity, shaking his hand. "Mr. Lowe," she said with a coy smile. Glad we could accommodate. Alyssa blinked. Lowe? The name stuck out. Familiar somehow, but she couldn't place it. Maybe a board member, a sponsor? Whoever he was, he didn't even glance at her as he strode toward the jet bridge, chatting amiably with Paige like nothing was wrong. She stepped forward. Excuse me, Ms. Whitmore. Paige's expression iced over. Miss, I've already explained the situation. No, you haven't. You said there was an irregularity, but my ticket was legitimate. You tore it up without even checking the system. That's enough. Paige's voice dropped to a warning register. If you continue to cause a scene, I'll be forced to call airport security. Alyssa's voice trembled, but she refused to step back. I'm not causing a scene. I'm asking why you just erased me like I didn't exist. At the corner of the gate area, an elderly man who had been watching from one of the lounge chairs stood up slowly. He wore a tweed blazer, round glasses, and held a folded newspaper beneath one arm. Earlier, he had offered Alyssa a soft smile, one of the few passengers who seemed to even notice what was happening. Now, he sighed deeply and turned away, walking in the opposite direction. Alyssa saw the movement but barely registered it. Her focus stayed locked on Paige's face, so smug, so composed. Security is on standby, Paige said. Please step away from the gate. Or what? Alyssa hissed. You'll have them drag me away for asking a question? The crowd had mostly thinned, but a few remaining passengers glanced up from their phones, sensing tension. A couple in business attire exchanged uneasy looks. A young mother with a stroller scooted closer to the wall, trying to stay invisible. This is your final warning, Paige said flatly. Step away, now. The young man from earlier, the one scanning documents, kept his eyes down, pretending not to hear. He didn't dare interfere. Alyssa's voice cracked. You don't even care, do you? This was personal. Paige arched a brow. Excuse me? You looked at me and decided I didn't belong up there. You didn't see a passenger. You saw a problem. The words hung in the air like smoke. Paige's jaw tightened just slightly. Miss, she said icily, you are delaying an international departure. I'm giving you a chance to walk away. If not, I will call the authorities to remove you. Alyssa stared at her for a long, silent beat. Then, finally, her body moved, slowly, backing away from the podium with all the dignity she could gather. She returned to the row of empty seats and sank into one, her hands trembling, her throat burning. Around her, life continued. The final boarding call echoed again. Wheels rolled. Announcements chimed. Laughter rose from the jet bridge as Mr. Lowe disappeared inside. The flight was leaving, and so was her future. Her phone buzzed. Message from Mom. Stay seated, eyes open. They won't get away with this. Across the terminal, the older man in the tweed blazer, Howard Kramer, turned the corner and entered the quiet of Gate C-18, which was already closed for the night. He sat down, pulled out his phone, and began typing rapidly. Subject: Urgent. Potential civil rights violation at Gate C-16 to Investigations Desk, The Wall Sentinel from H. Kramer. Time: 7:52 p.m. Summary: Altura Air Flight Attendant, Paige Whitmore, forcibly removed passenger from first-class seat assignment, citing ticket irregularity. No system check confirmed. Witnessed in real time. Passenger: young black female, approximately 19, visibly distressed. Seat reassigned to older white male, Brent Lowe. Tone and body language from staff indicative of prejudice. Agent made public announcement of cancellation before returning to podium. Name of flight attendant confirmed from badge. Recommend immediate follow-up. Note: passenger mentioned mother purchased ticket, heard name Naomi Carter, possible corporate connection. Suggest deeper inquiry into Alara Tech's or Altura Air relationship. He hit send, then leaned back and exhaled. His hands trembled, just a little. Howard Kramer had seen many things in his 30-year career as a financial journalist. He had covered bank collapses, tech exposés, private equity takedowns. But there was something about this, something intimate, something raw, that gnawed at him. It reminded him why he'd started reporting in the first place. Back at the gate, Alyssa sat like stone, her boarding pass gone, her dreams floating toward the runway, her stomach clenched, half from rage, half from helplessness. She watched as Paige passed by, clipboard in hand, checking the final tallies. She didn't glance at Alyssa again, but Alyssa saw something flicker behind her eyes. Not confidence, not victory, fear. Naomi Carter stood at her office window, one hand clenched into a tight fist against the cool glass. Below her, the city glowed in shades of gold and steel, busy, powerful, blind. She had lived too long watching systems protect the powerful while discarding the vulnerable. But not tonight, not her daughter, not this time. She pressed a single button on her office landline. The tone buzzed once, then connected. Gregory Bennett speaking. Naomi didn't pause. Gregory, this is Naomi Carter. We have a serious problem. There was a moment of silence on the other end, like a computer freezing mid-command. Naomi? His voice shifted immediately. Good Lord, it's been, what, 6 years? Are you calling about the acquisition review? No, she said, her voice like glass about to shatter. I'm calling because your airline just tore up my daughter's boarding pass and humiliated her in front of an international gate. Another silence, this one longer, deeper. Gregory cleared his throat. What? What exactly happened? She was flying Altura 702 out of JFK, first class, seat 2A. Ticket bought on Alara Tech's corporate account. Your gate agent, Paige Whitmore, called it fraudulent and handed her seat to someone else. Didn't verify, didn't scan, just decided. Gregory let out a slow exhale. Naomi, I don't want excuses, she interrupted. I want results, and I want them now. He faltered. Of course. I'm horrified. Let me contact our JFK station. No. Naomi's voice cut through like a scalpel. Let me be clear. If my daughter is not on that plane in the seat she paid for, by the time the wheels leave the tarmac, I will kill the Altura acquisition. Permanently. I will go on the record. I will speak to the board. I will call every investor I know. And you know how many of them answer when I call. Gregory swallowed audibly. She could practically hear him sweat. Naomi leaned back in her chair, voice calm now. Don't forget, Gregory, you were in my leadership seminar, remember? 12 years ago. What was the first lesson? He paused. Power is quiet until it needs to roar. Good memory, she said. Gregory's voice dropped to a whisper. I'll take care of it, personally. See that you do. And Gregory? Yes? Don't try to bury this. Not this time. She hung up. For a beat, Naomi let the silence surround her like armor. Then, without missing a breath, she grabbed her personal cell phone and dialed a second number. This one rang 4 times before it was picked up. Congressman Eldridge. Marcus, it's Naomi. A slight pause. Then, Naomi. Always a pleasure. I need a favor, she said, tone now steely and direct. Altura Air just racially profiled my daughter and tried to throw her off a flight she legally booked. I'm handling the corporate side, but I want eyes on this, public eyes. Congressman Marcus Eldridge didn't hesitate. Name? Flight 702, JFK to Heathrow, Gate C16. Passenger, Alyssa Carter. Offending employee, Paige Whitmore. The seat was reassigned to a white man, Brent Lowe. Eldridge sighed. Jesus, do you have confirmation? I have screenshots, witnesses, and I'm fairly certain it's about to go viral. I just need you to be ready when it does. You want me to draft a statement? No, not yet. I want you to watch. When this breaks, I want Altura to feel Congress breathing down their necks. And if this touches federal transport compliance, you'll know where to aim. Eldridge paused. Understood. I'll quietly notify the Oversight Committee. We'll keep this internal for now. But Naomi, thank you for the heads up. Not a heads up, she replied. A warning. Click. She lowered the phone and exhaled slowly, not in relief, but focus. She wasn't just protecting her daughter. She was drawing a line in the sand. Across the desk, her tablet buzzed. Incoming email. Subject, urgent. Gate C16. She opened it. Carter, this is Tina Hawkins, station manager at JFK for Altura Air. I've been contacted by Mr. Bennett. I am en route to Gate C16 personally. The flight has been held per your request. Please know that we take this matter very seriously. T. Hawkins. Naomi stared at the message, then typed a quick reply. Ms. Hawkins, thank you. My daughter's name is Alyssa Carter. Please restore her boarding access and ensure she receives an in-person apology. We are watching. N. Carter. She hit send, then stood, breathing deep. The fury in her chest had not subsided, but it had been channeled. And that, she had learned long ago, was the difference between a breakdown and a breakthrough. Across the room, the framed photo of Alyssa in her graduation cap smiled back at her. Her eyes were still full of wonder in that photo, untouched by the world's cruelty. Naomi touched the frame gently. Hold on, baby, she whispered. The system's about to meet your mother. The soft thud of the cabin door echoed like a countdown to disaster. Inside the cockpit, the captain had just completed his final checklist. Altura 702, ready for pushback, he radioed. But the ground control didn't respond right away. A scratchy voice crackled through. Hold at gate, management override in progress. The captain blinked. Say again. Management override. Do not initiate pushback. In the galley, Paige Whitmore smoothed her uniform and adjusted the pin on her lapel. Her voice was honeyed and professional as she addressed the seated passengers. Thank you for your patience, folks. We'll be departing shortly. She smiled as she walked down the aisle, but inside, her nerves began to fray. Something didn't feel right. At gate C16, Tina Hawkins strode toward the counter, a red ID badge swinging from her neck. Her reputation preceded her. No nonsense, meticulous, and, above all, fiercely fair. She had climbed her way up through layers of bureaucracy and glass ceilings, and didn't suffer fools. Behind her, 2 airport operations staff followed, one holding a tablet showing real-time updates on Flight 702. The moment she stepped into view, Mark, the junior gate agent, stiffened. He turned toward her with the tight, awkward posture of someone who knew a storm had arrived. Tina, he greeted. There was a situation. I'm aware, she said curtly. Where's Whitmore? On board already. Tina didn't wait. She stepped through the gate door and into the jet bridge. Paige was near the cockpit when Tina entered. The narrow corridor between first class and the flight deck went suddenly tense. Paige turned. Her practiced smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Tina, what a surprise. Not a social call, Tina replied. We need to talk, now. I'm in the middle of pre-departure. You're in the middle of a potential civil rights incident. The captain opened the cockpit door slightly, eyeing them. Tina gave him a nod. You're not going anywhere yet. Paige's face paled. I followed protocol. The passenger had no valid boarding pass. Tina stepped closer, her voice low and dangerous. You mean the one you tore up without system verification? The one assigned to seat 2A on a corporate account with confirmed payment? That one? Paige blinked. There were inconsistencies. Were there? Tina narrowed her gaze. Or was it just a gut feeling, like the time in Denver? The name of that city hit Paige like a slap. Tina continued. You remember that, don't you? The Asian family you said must have mixed up their flights, even though their boarding passes were fine. You made them wait 30 minutes in front of the gate until someone finally stepped in. That was a misunderstanding. That was a pattern, Tina snapped. For the first time, passengers began to notice something was off. Voices lowered, heads turned. I'm suspending you from duty pending investigation, Tina said. You will step off this aircraft now. Page's mask cracked just a little. On what authority? My own, as the station director for Altura Air at JFK. Tina held up her ID, and with a direct order from VP Gregory Bennett. At the mention of Gregory's name, Page's posture faltered. But she wasn't done. She turned to the cockpit. Captain, Ms. Whitmore is no longer authorized to serve on this flight. You'll receive confirmation in 5 minutes. Until then, hold the aircraft. The captain nodded once. Tina gestured toward the door. Off the plane, now. Page's eyes darted, calculating, but she could feel the tide turning, the invisible hands pulling the rug from beneath her. She exited the aircraft in silence. Back in the terminal, Tina marched toward the seating area. Her eyes found Alyssa instantly, still seated, composed despite the storm that had passed through her life just moments earlier. Tina walked up and crouched slightly to her level. Alyssa Carter? Alyssa nodded, eyes cautious. I'm Tina Hawkins. I'm here to make things right. Your seat is ready, and I'll personally escort you to it. Alyssa stood, stunned. What changed? Someone with a lot of power, and even more conviction, made sure we listened. She handed Alyssa a fresh boarding pass. Seat 2A, first class. As Alyssa gathered her things, she noticed Mark, the young gate agent, watching from the desk. His expression was conflicted. She couldn't tell if it was guilt, relief, or both. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about her anymore. There were eyes on everything. As they walked together down the jet bridge, Tina kept her voice low. Truth is, I've had my eye on Whitmore for a while. Too many reports swept under the rug. But this was the match. She knew what she was doing, Alyssa said quietly. She did, and now she's going to face the consequences. Back at the gate, Paige sat on a bench near the wall, her phone clutched in one hand, jaw tight. She watched as Tina and Alyssa disappeared into the jet bridge, and for the first time in her career, Paige didn't feel like she was in control. She felt cornered, alone. And somewhere, deep in her gut, a fear she didn't recognize began to settle in. Not fear of punishment, fear of exposure. The hush of the first-class cabin wrapped around Alyssa Carter like silk. As she stepped aboard, every movement felt impossibly slow, each breath a fragile thing. The air smelled of citrus and leather. The lights glowed with that warm, golden tone that screamed exclusivity. Tina Hawkins guided her down the short aisle. Right this way, Ms. Carter. Seat 2A waited, unoccupied, pristine, and exactly as it should have been. Passengers glanced up, some with polite nods, others with a flicker of confusion. One man, Howard Kramer, lifted his eyes just long enough to catch hers. Then he looked away, his face unreadable. Tina placed a gentle hand on Alyssa's shoulder. You're where you belong. No more interruptions. Alyssa slid into the seat, the plush material cradling her like a throne. She let her carry-on rest beneath the seat and took a long breath. The storm was over. Or so she thought. The purser approached. Would you like something to drink before takeoff? Alyssa smiled faintly. Just water, please. As the purser walked away, Tina gave her a final reassuring nod. I'll be just outside. Enjoy your flight, Ms. Carter. Alyssa nodded, her throat tight with emotion. But the moment Tina stepped off and the jet bridge door began to close, the atmosphere shifted. It started subtly. The cockpit door remained open longer than usual. Two flight attendants near the galley exchanged hushed words. The purser returned, offering her water, but his expression was stiffer than before. Then came the voice over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We are experiencing a brief delay. Please remain seated and we'll update you shortly. Alyssa's brow furrowed. Something was wrong. 10 minutes passed, then 15. A flight attendant leaned down beside her seat, voice polite but clipped. Ms. Carter, the captain is requesting a word. Alyssa blinked. With me? Yes, ma'am. He'd like to speak with you before departure. She stood, confused. and followed the attendant toward the cockpit. The captain stepped out, tall, composed, mid-50s with graying temples. His badge read, Captain R. Whitmore. Alyssa froze. Whitmore. Her blood chilled. Ms. Carter, the captain said, voice perfectly cordial. There appears to be a discrepancy in the manifest. Your name was marked as a no-show, and there's a mismatch in the system. I'm afraid we can't proceed with takeoff until this is cleared. I already boarded, Alyssa replied, her voice steady. Tina Hawkins, your station manager, escorted me on. My ticket was confirmed. The gate error was corrected. He nodded slowly. Be that as it may, I'm responsible for the flight, and I have to ensure all procedures are followed. Alyssa narrowed her eyes. Are you related to Paige Whitmore? A pause. Then, that's not relevant to this discussion. Her stomach dropped. Oh, it's very relevant, she said. She illegally removed me from this flight. You're her husband? Ex-husband, he corrected, his face neutral. We've been divorced for years. Again, not relevant. You're telling me the system can't confirm my name, she said, but somehow it confirmed Mr. Lowe's when Paige reassigned my seat? Convenient. He didn't answer. Alyssa stepped back, shaking her head. You're stalling. I'm protecting my passengers in this airline, he said smoothly. I suggest you remain calm while we sort this out. I am calm, she said, but I'm also not stupid. She turned to the flight attendant nearby. Please inform Ms. Hawkins that I've been removed from takeoff protocol by Captain Whitmore. The flight attendant hesitated. I said, Alyssa repeated. Call the station manager, now. The attendant disappeared down the aisle. Captain Whitmore crossed his arms. This attitude won't help. Alyssa laughed under her breath. You know what won't help? Trying to protect your ex-wife from accountability by derailing a flight full of people. You think you're saving her, but all you're doing is proving she was never acting alone. He took a step back. Watch your tone. I've watched too much already, she replied. The standoff hung in the air like a suspended blade. Moments later, Tina Hawkins stormed back onto the plane. She didn't wait for pleasantries. Captain Whitmore, is there a reason we are not airborne? He cleared his throat. System discrepancy. Passenger wasn't reflected. I manually reinstated the boarding record, Tina snapped. It's already been approved by VP Bennett. You have the green light to push back. I'm responsible for flight safety, he said coolly. And I'm responsible for ground operations, and this is not a safety issue. It's a personnel issue. Her tone dropped to a warning pitch. If you're interfering with this flight for personal reasons, especially those linked to an employee under investigation, you are risking your own position. Silence. Then Captain Whitmore turned and re-entered the cockpit. Tina turned to Alyssa. Please return to your seat. Alyssa walked back slowly, passengers watching her with quiet curiosity. She sat down. The engines hummed to life. Outside the window, the jet bridge pulled away. The plane began to taxi. And for the first time in hours, Alyssa smiled. But she knew something Paige hadn't expected. She wasn't a passenger anymore. She was a player, and this game had only just begun. The glow from Naomi Carter's monitor lit her office like a war room. One hand rested on the touchpad, the other clenched around her phone. On screen, the flight tracker for Altura 702 finally showed what she had been waiting for. In taxi. Her daughter was on the move, seat 2A, secured. But the battle wasn't over. It was just shifting theaters. She tapped a contact icon and hit call. Naomi, came a voice on the second ring, low, calm, and precise. It's late. I assume this isn't a social call. David, she said, we need to move up the timeline. David Lynn, CEO of Alara Tech, didn't ask for clarification. He didn't need to. The Altura acquisition? Yes, Naomi replied. Effective immediately. He whistled. Is this about the situation at JFK? I got a few pings about it from legal. It's worse than you think. There's systemic rot in their operations team, beginning with gate agents and extending into the cockpit, racial profiling, abuse of power, mishandling of corporate clients, and we have it all, on record. Then let's make it public, David said. No, not yet. Naomi stood, crossing to the glass wall that overlooked Manhattan's midnight skyline. We take control quietly, from within. Then we change it. You're sure? I'm done letting people like Paige Whitmore wear uniforms like armor. We fix the culture, or we bury the brand. David was silent for a beat. Then, I'll notify M&A. We'll initiate final paperwork within 24 hours. Do it in 12. Naomi. His voice softened. What happened tonight? Naomi didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, They tried to make my daughter feel small, and that was enough. Elsewhere in the city, Gregory Bennett was pacing in his penthouse apartment, tie loosened, glass of scotch untouched on the side table. His laptop was open to a blank Zoom screen, waiting for a high-priority call to connect. He muttered to himself, checking his phone. 4 missed calls from legal, 2 from internal HR, and a text from Paige. Tell them it was protocol. Protocol. Gregory scoffed. Paige Whitmore didn't know the meaning of the word. The screen blinked to life. Altura Air's CEO, Eleanor Grant, appeared in a private video call, flanked by 2 board members and their chief legal officer. Gregory, Eleanor said curtly, this better be urgent. Oh, it is, he replied, rubbing his forehead. We've got a full-scale brand crisis brewing out of JFK. A first-class passenger was denied boarding, humiliated at the gate, and nearly kicked off a flight until our station manager intervened. Was the passenger unruly? One board member asked. Gregory narrowed his eyes. No, she was a black honors student flying to Oxford on a scholarship interview. The real problem? Her mother is Naomi Carter. The call went dead silent. That Naomi Carter? Eleanor asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes. Board member at Alara Tech, architect of the Altura acquisition, and she just told me if her daughter doesn't get on that flight, she'll burn this deal to the ground. A legal advisor leaned into view. If that story leaks before acquisition closes, we'll get sued into oblivion. She doesn't want to leak it, Gregory said. She wants to own it. What does that mean? It means she's not just a mother. She's the one orchestrating the takeover. Another pause. Then Eleanor spoke again. I need options. Gregory leaned in. We push the acquisition across the finish line. Now, today. Naomi takes majority control under the pretext of resolving a cultural crisis. We make her the hero. Publicly. Internally, we concede. Quietly. A board member frowned. And Paige? She's already been suspended by the station director. HR has enough evidence to fire her. She'll be gone within 48 hours. What about the pilot? He's Paige's ex-husband, Gregory added. He tried to stall takeoff after Alyssa was back on the plane. Tina Hawkins shut him down, but he's a liability now. Eleanor ran a hand through her hair. We are days from public announcement. If this leaks, it won't, Gregory said. Naomi doesn't want PR. She wants power. And tonight, she proved she knows how to use it. The Zoom screen went dark again, replaced by the loading bar of a secure internal transmission. Operation Contingency Merge. Green light status confirmed. Alyssa leaned her head against the cool airplane window as the lights of JFK shrank behind her. The fight at the gate, the voices, the rage. It all seemed distant now, like echoes in a long tunnel. But she knew better. This wasn't over. Her phone buzzed. Message from Mom. Wheels up? Alyssa smiled faintly and typed, Taxiing now. Thank you. Naomi's reply came seconds later. Stay calm. You've done your part. Now let me finish mine. Alyssa stared at those words. They weren't just comforting. They were strategic. Some daughters had mothers who sent hugs and emojis. Hers launched takeovers. In a dark corner of JFK's staff lounge, Paige Whitmore sat staring blankly at her phone screen. She had texted Gregory 5 times. No reply. Her airline ID sat on the table beside her, its lanyard curled like a snake. She knew what was coming. The silence said it all. But what she didn't know was that this wasn't about a girl in seat 2A anymore. It was about a boardroom, a balance sheet, and a woman who had waited a long time for her turn at the controls. The next morning, Naomi Carter sat in a quiet conference room at Alara Tech headquarters, coffee untouched, her tablet glowing with digital reports. Her inbox was a cascade of forwarded messages, news alerts, and internal memos from Altura Air. One subject line caught her attention. Incident report. Flight 702, JFK, Heathrow, passenger A. Carter. She tapped it open. From Tina Hawkins to Gregory Bennett, CC, Legal, HR, Executive Oversight. Attachments, passenger testimony, video timestamp logs, employee history files. Attached to the report were 2 signed statements, one from the purser aboard Flight 702 and one from Brent Lowe himself. Naomi's eyes narrowed. Brent Lowe, the man who had accepted Alyssa's reassigned seat without question, had now submitted a formal acknowledgement. The upgrade was offered to me at the gate by Paige Whitmore. She referenced a scheduling issue and said the seat had become available. I had no reason to question her authority. In retrospect, I should have. I did not pay for first class. I should add that Ms. Whitmore is a long-time acquaintance. Our families are socially connected through my uncle, Harrison Lowe. Naomi's brows lifted. Harrison Lowe, chairman of Altura's board of directors. That wasn't just a twist. That was a lightning strike. She tapped again, opening the second file. A scanned memo from Howard Kramer, written on Wall Sentinel letterhead and marked confidential. As an investigative journalist for over 3 decades, I have observed patterns of racial bias within corporate structures. What I witnessed at Gate C16 was not an isolated misunderstanding. Ms. Whitmore's behavior, public humiliation of a young black woman, preemptive ticket confiscation, and contradictory system logic indicates entrenched prejudice and an abuse of power. I was not recognized, but I took notes, recorded timestamps, and retained a visual record of the announcement. This is not a story I want to publish. It is a culture I want to see reformed. Naomi smiled faintly. Howard had given them a chance to do the right thing before the world found out. She hit forward and sent both documents to David Lynn with a single line. Leverage secured. Begin transition. Meanwhile, at JFK's terminal operations office, Paige Whitmore sat in a sterile chair across from 3 stone-faced administrators. One of them was Tina Hawkins. Another was from HR. And beside her, to Paige's surprise and increasing panic, was Gregory Bennett himself. She cleared her throat. I assume this is about yesterday. I've already provided my version of events. Tina folded her arms. Let's talk about the other versions. Gregory pulled out a tablet and tapped twice, rotating it toward Paige. There it was. Brent's signed statement. And beneath that, Howard Kramer's report, stamped with Altura's highest internal clearance. Paige's voice faltered. That reporter. I didn't know he was watching. I didn't think... No, you didn't, Gregory interrupted. You didn't think anyone was watching. You acted on impulse, on bias. And worse, you leveraged personal connections to manipulate seat assignments. I didn't leverage. Brent is a family friend. He's also the nephew of our board chairman, Tina said coldly, which means your actions are now under scrutiny at the highest level of governance. Congratulations, Paige. You've triggered a full audit of our customer ethics policies. Paige's hands shook. Gregory stood. Effective immediately, you are suspended from all flight duty. Your access to the crew portal has been revoked. You will surrender your badge before leaving this room. Paige's voice dropped to a whisper. Gregory, please. You know me. You trained me. That's exactly why this hurts, he replied. Because I believed in you. She looked to Tina, to the HR rep. No empathy in their eyes. Just protocol. Her hands moved slowly, unclipping the badge she had worn for 18 years. She placed it on the table, metal against wood. A sound louder than any scream. Across the Atlantic, in the plush first-class cabin of Altura 702, Alyssa Carter leaned back as the flight descended into London. She didn't know the full fallout yet, but as the wheels touched down at Heathrow, her phone lit up with a string of messages that told her everything she needed to know. From Mom, page suspended, witness statements filed, and Brent Lowe's connection just opened the real door. From Tina Hawkins, I don't usually say this to passengers, but I'd fly with you any day. From an unknown number, Ms. Carter, my name is Eleanor Grant, CEO of Altura Air. I want to personally apologize for the experience you endured. We are investigating the incident thoroughly and taking steps to ensure it never happens again. If you're open to it, I'd like to speak with you directly next week. You have my word that this matter is not being brushed aside. E.g. Alyssa stared at the message for a moment, then replied simply, I don't need apologies. I need change. She turned off the phone and looked out the window as clouds parted over the English countryside. Her destination was Oxford, but her impact had already traveled farther than she'd imagined. The boardroom at Elara Tech was eerily quiet as the final page of the acquisition contract slid from the printer tray. Naomi Carter stood at the head of the long oak table, her presence unmistakably centered despite the polished suits and stoic faces surrounding her. David Lynn handed her a Mont Blanc pen. All terms finalized, all approvals secured. You're the last signature. Naomi didn't speak immediately. She reviewed the final line of the revised contract, highlighted in bold. Clause 27B, Cultural Reformation Mandate, a permanent executive-level task force dedicated to eliminating systemic bias within Altura Air's personnel and passenger treatment protocols. And just beneath that, added 2 hours earlier at Naomi's insistence, Subsection D, all existing ethics violations documented during the acquisition process to be published in the annual Corporate Transparency Report. No cover-ups, no burying names in legalese. Paige Whitmore's misconduct would become part of corporate history. Naomi signed. The pen moved with deliberate finality, as if rewriting more than a contract, rewriting a legacy. David leaned forward. You've just completed one of the cleanest corporate takeovers in the last decade. Congratulations, Naomi. Altura is now under Elara Tech control. A ripple of applause moved around the room, but Naomi didn't smile. Instead, she turned to her assistant and said, Notify Eleanor Grant. I want the public statement to go out within the hour. Later that afternoon, the official Altura Air channels posted across social media. To our valued passengers, partners, and community, we deeply regret the events that occurred on Flight 702 at JFK. The treatment of Miss Alyssa Carter was unacceptable and does not reflect the values we claim to uphold. Effective immediately, Altura Air will undergo a complete cultural audit and executive restructuring under the guidance of our new corporate parent, Elara Tech. We apologize not just to Ms. Carter, but to every passenger who has ever been made to feel less than welcome aboard our aircraft. This is not a press release. This is a reckoning. The statement went viral within minutes. Comments flooded in. Anger, support, outrage, vindication. #C2A began trending on X. Alyssa Carter's name was on national morning shows within hours. News outlets referred to Naomi as the quiet architect, and op-eds praised the transparency of the acquisition. But the biggest shock came not from the apology. It came from the leadership announcement the next day. Elara Tech issued a formal release. Ms. Naomi Carter will not assume an executive position at Altura Air post-acquisition. Instead, she has nominated and endorsed Ms. Leanne Tran as the new CEO of Altura Air effective immediately. Leanne Tran, a name unfamiliar to the press, but not to Naomi. Years earlier, Leanne had been a junior customer service rep at Altura's Denver office, the one Paige Whitmore had once accused of over-escalating a non-issue involving an Asian family wrongly delayed at the gate. Instead of being promoted after her report was ignored, Leanne had been transferred, then quietly let go during a restructuring. Naomi hadn't forgotten. Back then, Leanne had sent Naomi a single email through a mentorship forum. She never asked for favors, only for advice. Now, she was about to become the face of a reformed airline. Naomi sat in the back of the press briefing room, anonymous in her seat as Leanne stepped up to the podium. There was no grand entrance, no power suit, just a modest black dress, her hair tied neatly, her expression resolute. "I was once dismissed for speaking up," Leanne said, voice clear and calm. "Today, I speak from the top floor." Reporters snapped photos, scribbled notes, leaned forward. "My first act as CEO," she continued, "is to formally reinstate all employees and passengers previously penalized for reporting discrimination. Our internal ethics portal will be accessible publicly for transparency, and our new flight crew charter includes zero tolerance for prejudice, written in, enforced, and reviewed quarterly." Naomi felt the applause before she heard it, building like a wave, crashing through the room. This wasn't just a transfer of power. It was a redistribution of voice. After the conference, Leanne approached Naomi quietly backstage. "You should have taken the job," she said. Naomi shook her head. "I've fought long enough to earn the right to step aside. It's your turn now, and you'll do it better than I ever could." Leanne's eyes glistened. "Thank you for remembering me." "I never forgot," Naomi said. "You were the first person to say the system was broken before I had the power to fix it." They hugged, briefly. Then Naomi slipped away, unnoticed, leaving the spotlight to someone who'd spent her career in the shadows. That evening, Naomi sat on her apartment balcony with a glass of wine and a news segment playing faintly in the background. On screen, the anchor spoke over footage of Leanne standing beside Alyssa at a new Equity in Aviation summit. The audience was packed, the applause relentless. Alyssa was wearing a navy blue blazer, confident and poised. When asked what she had learned through the ordeal, she answered simply, "Power doesn't always show up in a uniform. Sometimes it's a phone call. Sometimes it's a silence broken. Sometimes it's your mother." Naomi exhaled, a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. She raised her glass to the skyline, to silence broken, to seats reclaimed, to legacy passed on. The narrow cobbled streets of Oxford smelled faintly of wet stone and books older than entire countries. Morning fog curled around the arches of All Souls College, and Alyssa Carter, wrapped in a charcoal gray coat and resolve, walked across the courtyard with a calmness she hadn't felt in days. She was here. After the chaos, the humiliation, the flight delay, and the whirlwind of headlines she'd mostly tried to ignore, she had arrived. On time, prepared, not broken. In the waiting room, there were 3 other applicants, all smartly dressed, all quiet, all radiating the nervous tension of students who had been exceptional their whole lives and were now about to be measured at the highest bar. Alyssa sat down, legs crossed, hands folded over a slim folder of her essays and transcripts. Her phone buzzed once in her coat pocket. A text from her mother. "Be brave, be honest, and don't be afraid to take up space. You earned it." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Naomi would know. A woman in a black wool suit opened the door to the waiting room. "Ms. Carter?" Alyssa rose. They led her into a circular room with windows that looked out over the spires and chimneys of the city. A round mahogany table stood at the center, and 5 scholars in various stages of silver-haired intellect sat behind it. One of them, a middle-aged man with a kind face and sharp eyes, gestured to the seat across from them. "Welcome, Ms. Carter. Let's begin." The first half of the interview was standard. Questions about her academic focus, why she chose international development and ethics, her volunteer work with underfunded public schools, and the analytical framework of her debate team thesis. Alyssa answered smoothly, her voice even, her words precise. She had done the work, and it showed. Then came the question that stopped the room. "Tell us," said the woman in the center, a distinguished professor of political philosophy, "about a recent challenge you've faced. One that tested your values?" Alyssa paused, not because she didn't have an answer, but because this was the moment that would matter most. She looked directly at the professor. "I was recently removed from a flight," she began, voice steady. "A first-class ticket, legally purchased, confirmed by ID. I was told it was fraudulent. My seat was taken. My dignity was stripped." One of the panelists looked up sharply. The others leaned in. "I was asked to step aside in public, silently, to avoid making a scene. But I didn't. I stood there. I asked questions. I held my ground." She breathed in slowly. "I never said the name of the woman who did it. I never said the name of the airline. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in truth. Because I believe the real test of our values is not how we respond when things go well, but how we act when we are diminished." Another panelist, an older man with a Scottish accent, nodded thoughtfully. "And what did you learn?" "That silence is not always noble," Alyssa said. "Sometimes silence is complicity. I learned that you can be dignified and loud, that you can demand respect without raising your voice, and that when injustice finds you, the only unacceptable response is to say nothing." There was a long pause. Pens stopped moving. No one blinked. And then one of the panelists, the kind-eyed man who had spoken least, leaned forward. "You said you didn't name names," he said, voice calm. "But I believe I know who your mother is." Alyssa's heart skipped. "Sir?" He smiled gently. "Naomi Carter. I worked for the State Department when she was offered the post of Undersecretary for Global Equity Initiatives. She declined, said she had something more important to do at the time." Alyssa blinked. "I didn't know she was offered that." "She turned it down to raise you," he said simply. "She said, and I quote, 'I can build systems later, but right now, I'm building a daughter.'" The words hit Alyssa like a lightning bolt she hadn't seen coming. Her throat closed slightly. She wasn't sure whether to nod, cry, or speak. "I'm glad you're here, Ms. Carter," the man said. "Your mother was one of the most principled minds I ever met, and you've made it clear that you inherited that spine." The professor in the center smiled. "Thank you, Ms. Carter. That will be all for now." Alyssa stood, thanked them, and walked out on legs that felt heavier than they had going in. The air outside tasted different, sharper, lighter. She leaned against the cool stone of the building for a moment, allowing herself a breath. Not because she thought she'd gotten it, but because she'd said what needed to be said. A week later, back in New York, Naomi stood in her kitchen when her daughter burst in through the door, cheeks flushed, eyes wide. Naomi raised an eyebrow. "Well?" Alyssa handed her an envelope, heavy, cream-colored, with the Oxford seal. Naomi opened it slowly, pulling out the thick card. Her eyes scanned, then paused, then lifted. Alyssa smiled through a blur of tears. "I got it." Naomi said nothing. She just pulled her daughter in and held her, forehead to forehead. No more flights to catch, no more battles to win. Just this moment. A victory. Shared. The cursor blinked on Paige Whitmore's laptop screen as she stared at the online application for a regional airline based out of Charlotte. It was her 5th one that week. Her fingers hovered over the Submit button. She had rewritten her resume 3 times, toned down the language, omitted certain dates, swapped senior lead flight attendant for team trainer. She had no choice. She hit Submit. A red banner flashed instantly. "We regret to inform you that your application cannot be considered at this time." No explanation, no buffer, just rejection. Again. Paige leaned back, the chair creaking beneath her, and let her head fall into her hands. The walls of her small apartment were bare now. She'd sold most of her artwork and furniture just to keep the lights on. The framed commendation plaque she once displayed with pride now sat face down in a drawer. It read, 15 years of service, Altura Air. That life was over, and the industry had closed its doors. Every airline, every staffing agency, Every contact she reached out to either ignored her or replied with a version of the same cold line. "We are not considering your application at this time." No one said it directly. No one had to. Her name had become toxic, not because of a single mistake, but because the curtain had finally been pulled back. 2 weeks earlier, Altura's internal audit report had been leaked, not publicly, but through back channels, whisper networks, encrypted HR forums, a confidential PDF that somehow found its way into the inbox of nearly every major airline recruiter in North America. The findings were damning. Page 47. Gate Supervisor P. Whitmore initiated at least 4 ticket denials in the past 18 months where passenger ID matched, payment was verified, and no system discrepancy was present. 3 of those passengers were people of color. None of the incidents escalated due to lack of reporting structure or fear of retaliation. Page 52. Multiple internal complaints from coworkers citing hostile behavior, favoritism, and performance ambushes were filed but never escalated beyond team lead due to interpersonal conflicts. And then there was the final blow. A statement by an anonymous employee, later confirmed as a former Altura flight attendant named Rachel Kim. Paige Whitmore created a culture of fear. If you questioned her, your schedule disappeared. She once told me, "You don't belong in first class, stick to the cart." I was demoted after I spoke up. I resigned a month later. That testimony wouldn't have been more than a footnote, until Rachel Kim went public. On a quiet Tuesday morning, Rachel uploaded a video to her social media accounts. Just 3 minutes and 12 seconds long. No tears, no dramatics, just facts. I used to work for Altura Air. I've kept quiet for years, but seeing what happened to Alyssa Carter reminded me why I left the industry. She recounted her time under Paige Whitmore, the verbal jabs, the shift cancellations, the time Paige accidentally booked her on back-to-back red-eyes with no legal rest window. "I wasn't the first," Rachel said, "but I want to be the last." She ended the video with a quote, "Power unchecked becomes rot. Let this be a cleanup." By noon, the video had over 1 million views. By midnight, it was on the evening news. Paige watched it unfold in real time, like a building collapsing from the inside. Every comment, every retweet, every quote tweet with the words, "I believe her." In the following days, more stories surfaced. Former co-workers, trainees, gate agents. Even a former union representative posted screenshots of emails Paige had sent to pressure scheduling changes. Emails that, in hindsight, reflected patterns of implicit bias. The narrative wasn't just about what happened to Alyssa. It was about the system Paige had helped create. A petty fiefdom of favoritism, racism masked as protocol, and power wielded not to serve, but to diminish. The phrase, Whitmore effect, began circulating online, used by whistleblowers in other industries to describe individuals who rise by silencing others, only to implode under scrutiny. By week's end, Paige's name trended on social media, not in tribute, but as a cautionary tale. Paige sat in her car outside a small grocery store in Queens, staring at the ignition. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat, a message from her bank. Alert. Your checking balance has dropped below $50,100. She blinked, then laughed. It was a sharp, humorless sound. She had once been the gatekeeper to the sky. Now the only thing she controlled was whether she could afford gas for another week. She turned the key and sat in silence. It would be so easy to be bitter, to blame the system, to claim she was misunderstood, to say, "I was just doing my job." But in the quiet, even she couldn't believe that anymore. The mask had fallen, and beneath it, there was nothing left but regret. That night, she opened her laptop and typed something she never thought she'd write. A resignation letter? No. An apology, not to Altura, not to the media, to Alyssa. "You don't know me, and you have every reason to hate me, but I need you to know, I was wrong. I let my biases win. I took a seat from someone who deserved it because I couldn't see past my own fear. You weren't just a passenger. You were proof that the world is changing, and I tried to stop that change. I failed. I hope you never have to read this, but if you do, I'm sorry." She hit save. She didn't send it. Not because she was afraid, but because she knew some things weren't meant to be absolved. They were meant to be remembered. The late afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of Naomi Carter's Manhattan apartment, casting long golden streaks across her mahogany desk. The apartment was silent, save for the hum of the city far below and the occasional tick of the minimalist wall clock. On the desk sat a single envelope, addressed in Alyssa's tidy handwriting. The Oxford postmark was barely 2 days old. Naomi reached for it slowly, savoring the moment, as if even touching it too fast would make it disappear. She opened the flap carefully and unfolded the letter inside. "Dear Mom, it's raining here today, but the kind of rain you can walk through without minding. The kind that makes everything smell like books and bricks. I love it. Classes are intense. The kind of intense I dreamed of. The kind that reminds me of late nights with you pushing me to ask harder questions. I haven't forgotten a moment of what happened, but I also don't carry it like a weight. It feels more like a scar, something I survived, something I learned from. You taught me that. Thank you for fighting for me when I couldn't, and thank you for teaching me that I can fight for myself too. Love you always, Alyssa." Naomi let the letter rest in her lap. Her fingers curled lightly around the edges, not creasing it, just holding. For a moment, her eyes flicked toward the small framed photo of the two of them. Alyssa at 12, her face mid-laugh. Naomi behind her, hand resting on her shoulder. It had been taken the day of her first debate championship. Naomi remembered it vividly, because it was the first time she'd seen her daughter speak truth to power. A sixth-grade teacher who told her she was too intense for her age. That teacher had been in the audience that day. She'd stood and clapped when Alyssa won. Naomi turned back to her desk. There, lying beside the letter, was a document she'd been sitting on for over a week. The official agreement confirming Alara Tech's divestment from Altura Air. The plan had always been temporary. Intervene, fix what was broken, and walk away before the company could mold her vision into something else. She had made the system change. She had watched it pivot under the weight of truth, and now it was time to close the loop. She picked up the thick folder. Its embossed seal gleamed in the sunlight. She ran her fingers across the words, Altura Holdings, Final Asset Release. She could have signed it, filed it, locked it away. Instead, she did something else. She tore it in half, not recklessly, deliberately, one line at a time, like undoing a knot that had bound too tightly for too long. The sound was quiet, but to Naomi, it was louder than the intercom that had once called her daughter's name into silence, louder than the ripping of a boarding pass at gate C-16. This was justice. And justice, she'd learned, didn't always look like handcuffs or headlines. Sometimes, it looked like a mother tearing apart what once tore her daughter down. 1 month later, in a sunlit auditorium inside Alara Tech's headquarters, a small crowd gathered. Scholars, educators, employees, and invited press. David Lynn stepped onto the stage with a calm smile and a folded slip of paper in his hand. "Thank you all for being here," he began. "Today is not a press event. It's not a publicity stunt. It's a promise kept." He gestured toward a large screen behind him. A photo of Alyssa appeared, standing at Oxford, in front of the Bodleian Library, smiling into the camera. Beneath it, the words, "The Alyssa Carter Justice Grant," a $5,000 educational fund dedicated to supporting students affected by racial discrimination in institutional systems. The crowd applauded, slowly at first, then stronger. David continued. "In light of recent events, and in recognition of the resilience and integrity shown by one young woman and her family, Alara Tech is proud to redirect the entirety of our former partnership budget with Altura Air into a scholarship fund for students whose stories have too often been silenced." He looked up, his tone firm. "No student should lose a seat because of their skin color. No child should have to prove their worth to a uniform, and no parent should have to go to war to remind the world that their child belongs. From the audience, Lian Tran, now fully seated as Altura Air's CEO, nodded slowly. The cameras clicked, but no one spoke, because the moment didn't need sound. It needed memory. Across the Atlantic, Alyssa sat in her dorm room, surrounded by books and notes and an untouched cup of tea. A friend from her seminar burst in, phone in hand. "Have you seen the Alaritech stream?" she asked breathlessly. "They named it after you." Alyssa looked up. "Wait, what?" Her friend turned the phone toward her. There it was, her face, her name, and a scholarship she hadn't known was coming. Her mouth opened slightly. Her eyes welled. She didn't cry, not because she wasn't overwhelmed, but because it felt right. Not like a gift, like a legacy. Later that night, she called her mom. "I didn't know you were going to name it after me." Naomi's voice on the other end was calm, warm. "I didn't." The board insisted. "I'm not a hero," Alyssa whispered. "You're not," Naomi agreed. "You're a young woman who stood up when others stayed quiet. That's better." There was silence. Then Alyssa said, "I think I want to come home for the holidays. Just to sit with you, watch the lights, drink hot chocolate like we used to." Naomi smiled, unseen. "I'd like that." Outside Naomi's window, the city blinked in golden rhythm. Cars passed, people rushed, lights flickered. And inside, a mother sat alone, watching a system she once feared begin finally to bend. Not because someone screamed, but because someone stood.